Why on earth is someone like you, with poo education and no skills, attending our wedding? Just breathing the same air as you makes me feel like I'm losing brain cells. I was invited to the wedding ceremony of Michael, who is my manager, and attended with Sarah, my newlywed wife. However, his bride, sitting next to Michael, started belittling me on a mic in her hand. Michael turned pale and desperately tried to stop his bride, sitting next to him, but to no avail. To make matters worse, his bride exposed all the harassment Michael had subjected me to in the past, saying, "What about you? You've been bad-mouthing him too." In this uncontrollable situation, someone suddenly stood up and glared fiercely at Michael and his bride. "My name is James. To be honest, I don't have any academic qualifications. I joined a company right after graduating from middle school. People often ask why I didn't go to high school or college, but I could only say it was due to family circumstances. If possible, I too would have liked to go to high school and even college. But my family situation didn't allow for that. Though my parents wanted me to attend college, I respectfully declined. I have two younger brothers, Charlie and Daniel, and at that time, they had just started kindergarten and elementary school. I was confident I could manage on my own, but I didn't want my brothers to go through such hardships. So, I decided to start working right after middle school to save up for their college tuition. I was introduced to my current company through school, and it's almost been 10 years since I joined. In the beginning, being a middle school graduate, I was mostly assigned menial tasks, but as my tenure increased, I was entrusted with various responsibilities. By my 5th year, I was working with almost the same conditions as college graduates. After working for 10 years, I could smoothly handle almost all tasks in the company. Not only did my job quality improve, but I also gained confidence. Yet, I never settled for just that and tirelessly pursued my efforts with greed every day. Having been looked down upon for only completing middle school, I never wanted to go through that experience again, nor did I wish to put myself in such an environment. My efforts were eventually recognized by those around me, and I managed to build good relationships. "Hey, James, you're doing great. Thank you. This is all thanks to the seniors like you who patiently taught me the ropes when I was still new here. Come on, saying that won't get you anything." While I was working at my desk, a senior colleague, Tom, casually spoke to me. He held 2 cups of coffee, placing one on my desk with a smile. "Wow, thank you. It's not much." He smiled again and returned to his desk. Then, Emily, a junior colleague, sitting next to me, called out to me, "James, sorry but my software stopped working." Emily came to me with a tearful face, showing me the screen. Indeed, the software had frozen and the screen had gone white. Upon asking Emily for details, it seemed that this issue arose whenever attempting to open documents sent by a client. The software installed on our company computers is always up to date. So, it's unusual for there to be issues with opening files, but after considering various factors, including the possibility that her computer might not have the necessary specifications, I couldn't manage to open the document on their device. In the end, I had to take over the task. "James, sorry for causing you trouble." "It's okay, we're here to help each other," I replied with a smile, and Emily seemed relieved and smiled back. Taking over Emily's task, I handed my work to her instead. We supported each other like this, keeping a positive atmosphere in the office. Looking back, I can only agree if someone were to say that I was the one who disrupted the atmosphere. "James, can you work overtime today?" Oh. It was 20 minutes before the end of the day. Michael, the manager, said he needed help with some urgent work. However, I had an important matter today that required me to leave on time. "I'm sorry, I can't make it today due to personal reasons," However, I'm available to help tomorrow. At my response, Michael furrowed his brow. It has to be today. Then, perhaps you could ask another employee for help, as I really can't miss my appointment today. I apologized to Michael repeatedly, and as soon as the end-of-day bell rang, I left the office. Missing today's appointment could seriously affect my life. I understand that taking on work is crucial for building trust within the company, but when it comes down to weighing it against my future, I prioritize my own life. However, I would come to know that my decision was a mistake. The next day arrived. Hey, good morning, poorly educated James. Excuse me. As I arrived at work as usual, I was greeted sarcastically by Michael, who had arrived earlier. I was surprised because nobody had used the term in reference to me since I first joined the company. And Michael was normal until yesterday, so what happened? The meeting with the client this afternoon has been rescheduled to start at 5 p.m. Oh, really? Well, I see. I wondered if I had missed any communication from the client as I replied to Michael. Michael said it in his usual tone of voice, so I decided to think that I must have misheard his insult. However, the incident would occur at the time of the meeting. I was preparing to connect remotely with the client in conference room 1. But as time passed, the meeting didn't start. After a 30-minute wait, feeling something was amiss, I immediately contacted the client for confirmation. Oh, is this James? I believe we had a meeting scheduled for today. Has something happened? That's what we'd like to ask you. Weren't you the ones who missed this afternoon's meeting? We'll have to reconsider this deal from scratch now. Wait, what? The tone of the client's representative was unexpectedly stern, and I was shocked. Moreover, they confirmed that the meeting was still scheduled for the afternoon, without any changes. The one who informed me about the meeting time change was Michael. I immediately left the conference room and went to Michael. Michael. Even though I raised my voice, Michael continued to ignore me as if he hadn't heard. Michael, did you lie to me about the change of the meeting time? When I banged on Michael's desk and confronted him, he responded with, "Excuse me, what are you talking about?" The argument went nowhere, and I gave up on blaming Michael. I should have confirmed with the client myself when I first heard about the meeting time change. Now, with the deal cancelled, the responsibility weighs heavily on me. I need to gradually regain trust. But Michael's actions, which could be seen as harassment, was not limited to just that day. Man, you're still not done with this work. You're so slow. Don't get cocky just because you've been working in here a while despite being poorly educated. Michael constantly made derogatory comments towards me. He would offload his work onto me and then berate me if it wasn't finished immediately. Maybe I had become complacent about my position due to the positive environment around me, despite being poorly educated. I reminded myself that I could be fired at any moment and became even more dedicated to my work. Many would be inconvenienced if I didn't work hard. I later visited the client I had inadvertently stood up for the meeting, bringing a box of sweets to apologize. The person in charge then mentioned that they had been upset at the time but agreed to continue our business relationship. Relieved, I was able to focus even more on my work. James, you've been really putting your all into work lately. Yes, it hit me that I still have so much to learn. As I began to focus more on my work, those around me also started putting in more effort. It seems they felt encouraged seeing me work hard. Thanks to everyone's hard work, the company's overall performance began to improve. However, it seemed Michael was displeased with this situation, continuing with his self-centered work style as before. As a result, he ended up being the only one lagging behind in performance, which further soured his mood. Time passed, and I endured daily harassment from Michael while continuing to work. Finally, My efforts were rewarded. James, your promotion has been decided. At the morning meeting, Mr. Thompson, the company president, personally announced my promotion. The people in the office congratulated me with applause. However, Michael was the only one who seemed displeased, glaring at me as if to express his discontent. I had been eagerly awaiting this promotion. Well, it's been decided. Congratulations. Thank you. When I told Sarah, whom I live with, about my promotion, she was delighted as if it were her own achievement. I had shared everything with her, including my troubles with Michael and all the good and bad things at work. It's no exaggeration to say that I was able to keep going until today because of her. And I had made up my mind. Once my promotion was decided, I planned to convey something important to her. And so, I ended up getting married to the woman I had been dating for a long time. That day, we were out looking at wedding venues together. I'm excited about previewing the venue. What kind do you like, James? As long as you're happy with it, anywhere is fine by me. After all, the bride is the star of the wedding. James, you're really sweet. She was smiling the whole time. Today, not only were we viewing venues, but she was also scheduled to try on dresses, making it an entirely enjoyable experience for her. In the dressing room filled with various gowns, she felt like a princess and was very excited. I decided to wait outside on a sofa, telling her to take her time without worrying about the clock. As I took a seat on the sofa with a small sigh, I heard a familiar voice calling out to me. Is that you, James? Oh, Michael. Judging by Michael's neat attire, it seemed he was also here to scout a wedding venue. A woman, presumably Michael's girlfriend, stood beside him. When our eyes met, I gave a light greeting, but she quickly looked away. What are you doing here? I came with my girlfriend. She's in the fitting room right now. Even a loser like you can get married, huh? Education has nothing to do with marriage, right? Michael would insult me regardless of the place. I didn't want to argue in public, so I didn't respond strongly, but Michael's girlfriend, having heard our exchange, suddenly burst into laughter. Well, so, you're the infamous guy with poor education, the incompetent one I've heard so much about from him. Always dragging Michael down, aren't you? I hear it all the time, how you're making everyone's workload heavier because of your mistakes. Yeah, that's him. Taking advantage of his girlfriend joining in, Michael ramped up his insults. Moreover, what Michael was telling her was completely false, which made me even feel a bit sorry for her. Hearing nothing but complaints about me from Michael must be stressful for her. As I was thinking of this, Michael's girlfriend was called away by the staff for her dress fitting, and she left. At the same moment, Sarah returned. James, sorry to keep you waiting. Oh, someone you know? Yeah, from work. As I was about to introduce Sarah to Michael, he caught a glimpse of her and his eyes widened in shock. Michael, is this your girlfriend? Upon seeing Sarah, Michael's complexion visibly worsened. This incident led to a sudden halt in his harassment towards me. Although my colleagues and I found it odd, we were just relieved that work could proceed smoothly without any disturbances. However, Michael's behavior became strange afterward. Not only did the harassment stop, but he also started going out of his way to bring me coffee and even offered help whenever I seemed stuck with my work. Despite my refusals, insisting that it wasn't appropriate for a manager to do a subordinate's work, Michael began taking tasks from me to do himself. With the extra time on my hands, I was able to deliver higher quality work than before. This also led to an overall increase in work efficiency within the company, which was a win-win situation for me. Soon after, Sarah and I held our wedding ceremony. We invited colleagues from the company, including Michael. At her parents' request, we planned a grand wedding ceremony. With more guests than we could possibly greet, both she and I experienced a wedding filled with immense joy. Half a year after our wedding, Michael was planning his own and sent out invitations to the company employees. I asked if my wife could also attend, and Michael, sweating profusely, eagerly agreed. I wonder why Michael starts to panic whenever I mention Sarah. While Sarah and I were chatting in the corridor before the reception started, the bride walked past us, right by our side. To be more precise, she was going to walk past us. Upon seeing me, the bride stopped and turned to face us. "Are you the one from back then?" Despite being in her wedding dress, the bride approached us and scrutinized both me and my wife's faces. "Uh-oh, you're already married, right? Too bad you can turn back now." "What? Do you know your husband is poorly educated and incompetent at work?" "Well, that look on your face says you didn't know. Sorry for you. Could you please stop?" Seeing my wife uncomfortable, I intervened, but the bride just sneered and said, "Oh, sorry," before heading to the dressing room. What was that all about? "Sorry for making you feel uncomfortable." "No problem, but James, are you all right?" "Me? Why?" "You looked a bit upset." "I'm fine." I had shared everything with Sarah. In fact, she knew everything about me before we even started dating, including my educational background and job situation. Therefore, the bride's revelations had no effect on our bond. As the reception began, all guests gathered in the venue. Michael and the bride made their grand entrance to applause. However, the bride looked down at me with a triumphant smirk as soon as our eyes met. I tried to ignore it, but throughout the various entertainments, the bride kept watching me closely. When it was time for the bride and groom's speech, the bride eagerly grabbed the mic, pointed at me, and addressed the guests. "Why on earth is someone like you, with poor education and no skills, attending our wedding? Just sharing the same air with you makes me feel like I'm losing brain cells." The atmosphere in the venue froze at the bride's words. Among the guests were the bride's parents and friends, but there were more of Michael's contacts. Moreover, the majority were colleagues from work. It was highly inappropriate for the wife of a manager to make such statements in front of professional acquaintances. Michael looked horrified and tried desperately to stop her, but the bride continued her tirade unabated. "Does everyone know? Despite being incompetent and constantly dragging us down, he clings to his job, pretending nothing's wrong, just like a pest." "Hey, stop it. Why should I? I'm just repeating what you told me. You even said you didn't want someone like him at our wedding. Why did you even invite him?" "Well, that's..." Michael seemed at a loss for words in the face of the bride's onslaught. Sarah, colleagues at the same table, and I were all taken aback by the bride's audacity. Unabated, the bride's focus shifted from me to Sarah. "You really drew the short straw, didn't you? Too bad you can turn back now." "James, is she okay?" My wife nudged my arm and whispered. I just shrugged and shook my head. As the bride continued unabated, Michael's face grew increasingly pale. This was far from the joyous expression one would expect from a groom on his wedding day. Although my colleagues and I were used to being bad-mouthed and looked down upon in the office, there was someone among us who couldn't contain his anger on our behalf. With a clatter, Mr. Thompson, who was sitting nearby, stood up. "Michael, who were you directing such insults at? What exactly is going on here?" "Mr. Thompson." Michael is barely hanging on after having incited the wrath of President Thompson. "How could you do such a thing to someone who's going to be the next president?" "Mr. Thompson, those words were not mine, and your soon-to-be wife is saying all this. It can only be assumed you're the one who fed her such notions." "Well, that's..." Unexpectedly, Mr. Thompson announced my upcoming role as the next president, leaving me and Sarah exchanging bewildered glances. She chuckled amusedly. Indeed, my wife is the daughter of Mr. Thompson, making her the president's daughter. Mr. Thompson, of course, has known me since I joined the company and is aware of my educational background. He has always valued me purely based on my achievements and abilities. Michael stopped harassing me the moment he saw Sarah because he quickly recognized she was the president's daughter. It meant that Michael wasn't foolish enough to overlook the significance of the president's daughter visiting the venue with me. Despite Michael's profuse apologies and his tuxedo, President Thompson's anger seemed to have reached its peak, and it appeared he wasn't willing to listen. Working while harboring such negative feelings towards others already marks you as incompetent. And on top of that, spreading slander makes you an unwanted person in our workforce. To everyone's astonishment, Michael was fired on the spot during his own wedding. Adding insult to injury, the bride, through the mic, scornfully said to Michael, "Now jobless. Am I marrying to the unemployed guy? No way. Goodbye." Despite being the cause of the commotion, Michael's girlfriend dismissively sighed and left the venue, ignoring her own role in the uproar. The atmosphere left behind for us was undoubtedly the worst. The venue staff, unsure of how to proceed, let the wedding music play on as planned, its notes echoing emptily through the hall. Since then, it seems Michael has been holed up at home. Understandably so, as he was not only fired but also left by the bride during the wedding, leading to the collapse of his marriage. Feeling somewhat sorry for him and recognizing his abilities, I plan to call him back once I've established myself as a competent president and gained recognition. To achieve this, I continue to work diligently, facing each day's challenges with earnest dedication.